That first year at Evergreen Junior High, football season was over, basketball season coming up. Football season had gone well enough that I wasn't really concerned about the athletic program. Didn't go and watch any practices. Had dealt with that problem when Jerry Alatic had beat up on Tom when Tom was the last one, I think, chosen for the basketball team when Jerry wasn't. But I never gave that any real thought. But I go to the first home game. Maybe it was the first game, I don't know. Don't remember. But hey, what I saw was not good at all. I'd never seen a team behave in a more unsportsmanlike manner, rude and crude to each other, to their opponents. They swore. They were a disgrace. And that's from a guy that's played pickup ball with hundreds of different people and under completely unsupervised pickup games at home, in the little school, in the Army, both times. Been on Army teams, played a little in college. Refereed in the Industrial League down at Nashville, Tennessee when I was working on the master's degree. I've never seen that kind of behavior on a floor. I don't know why the referees weren't doing much more than they did. Well, they called some fouls. If I'd been refereeing, there'd been some people thrown, out of the game. Well, you can't do anything but watch the game at the time, but afterwards made it a point to sit down with the basketball coach and say, now, hey, we aren't going to have that kind of behavior. And I guess I was naive enough that I expected him to say, well, I'm glad to hear you say that. If you'll back me, I'll get that situation corrected. I wasn't sure if you would back me. That wasn't the reaction at all. He said quite a bit, but what it really boiled down to was, Mr. Riggs, you don't understand the kind of boys we have in this school. Well, I was getting acquainted with some characters that I had plenty of reason to know could be bad characters at times, but I was dealing with them from my end of the street, making it, I thought, very clear we're not going to continue to have that kind of behavior. So I didn't really understand why the coach wouldn't be dealing with correcting that kind of behavior. But he had looked like he wasn't even aware of what was going on when it was going on the floor, and now he's telling me that it's impossible to correct it, that this is the nature of the boys in this school. Well, of course, my reaction, privately and personally, was if that's the way those particular boys play, then they're not on the team. I don't care whether we win or lose. You don't put those kind of behaviors on the floor representing a school, any school. I wouldn't even put them on the floor behaving the way they were if that was a reform school. Well, I think it came to the point of me saying, you've got to take care of the problem, or I will remove you as coach and appoint somebody else. And I think he more or less indicated, well, nobody else would do it. And I may have been foolish enough to say, if necessary, I'll do it myself. We're not going to have that kind of a team represent this school. Well, to make a long story short, he made some improvement. He began to set boys on the bench when they misbehaved, and things toned down a little. Not enough to really suit me, and I don't think enough to really suit him. And I don't think he appreciated at all the fact that I didn't appreciate that he wasn't getting the job done more efficiently. Whatever the reason, at the end of the school year, he transferred out of our school. He was a local resident of Evergreen, and we saw each other from time to time over the years, and we're always civil to each other, and I really think he's a very, very nice man. Maybe he was too nice a man to deal with boys that weren't nice. I don't know. But I do know that we never had that kind of behavior anymore after that year. Now, not that there weren't incidents. Of course there are incidents. There's a difference between having an incident here and there and having a team that's the normal way they behave. I won't name names, at least not at this point, of any of the boys that were on that team. But I will say that later in that school year, or maybe it was the next school year, I don't know. But Mr. Difford, and I believe Mr. Osey, might have been someone else involved, had the, I think, 9th graders out for a field day, sort of an end of school celebration of some sort. And when they came back in, they said, "Guess what?" And they named a very upstanding young man in our school. Got into a fight with, and they named one of those characters that were on that ball team that the coach said, "You don't understand the kind of boys we have." And I guess by the time the sponsoring teachers were aware the fight was going on, the guy, I guess the kids had kind of gone over the hill or something, around behind the trees. When they got around to where they could see, the good guy was pounding the heck out of the bad guy, and they made a decision that I'm sure wasn't proper, to let it go. Let the good guy beat up on the bad guy. But they said now the rest of the story is the good guy broke his hand in the fight. I said, well, one of you or both of you take him home and talk to his dad, and I'll sit right here waiting for his phone call. That call didn't come. Saw the sponsoring teachers the next day, and they said, you know, we were able to explain that to the father in such a way that made him proud of his boy, and I don't think you'll be getting a call. And I didn't. And it might have been the turning point in establishing the good guys are going to rule in that school and not the bad guys, although it was a bad thing to have happen.